Yo! All right, let's hope that is working. Can I do that? And then if we do this and maybe some of this. All right, cool. We're on. Cool. So, yeah, this is stream time. We're gonna build some cool stuff. Sorry, the lighting isn't amazing. If I turn this? Oh no, that's way worse. All right. Yeah, last week I had a bunch of tech issues, which I thought were due to network and it just not having great internet in Australia. But then I thought that I was recording, well, I was recording a local version of the stream, but it turned out that it was all of those network issues were somehow baked into the video recording. So now we get to do the whole stream again and pretend that we haven't already done it before. I still have terrible Australian internet, and so let me know if if it is stuttery and if the video jumps and if the audio is terrible, and I will try and fix it. But I'm using StreamYard now instead of going directly through Twitch, so now I can stream to multiple different targets. So yeah, if it's not, I mean, it won't really make a difference, but if it's not working on YouTube, maybe try Twitch. And if it's not working on Twitch, maybe try Twitter or something like that. Hello, Alistair. Welcome to the stream. Lovely to see you. Yeah, we're going to get started. One thing I was going to check. Actually, I'll just quickly, look, we can do this all together. We can open up Twitter. We can tweet. We need the link from StreamYard, which is in here. And all right, never mind. We won't post about this. Actually, no, we can do this. We can go to a previous tweet. This is how awesome I am at finding links. Look, there I am. It's all happening. It's happening inside the Twitterverse. All right, let's grab this one and let's paste this here. You get to see behind the curtain of what it's like. Oh no. What it's like managing the John Myers social media accounts. Did this work? Tweet it. All right, cool. And we can say my wonderful, commonly used emojis. Let's do a red balloon. Now, come build some fun stuff. And obviously another red balloon for symmetry. All right. Sick. So, yeah. So I'm using, I just realized you couldn't see any of that. Okay, I was posting to Twitter. Sorry. I should remember that I need to do things like change this to this, or like this, or, oh man, these are cool. Very cool. Yeah, sorry about that. If you were just watching me randomly talk to myself and type letters, I was just posting on Twitter to say that the stream is now live. Hello, Code. Was this super music? That was just, sorry, I can bring this up on the screen. That was just some built-in stuff for StreamYard. But yeah, I couldn't work out a way to put custom music in because it wanted to be loops that could just keep going and going and going. But I did produce that very sick beat that we use for the intro music for all of our YouTube videos. And so I should work out a way to try and get that back in there. Yeah, much cooler. And hello, Gurav. I see that you just came to say hi and it's 4 a.m. So you're going to sleep. That is 100% understandable and reasonable. Yeah, I would not be here if it was 4 a.m. So I wouldn't expect you to be here if it's 4 a.m. Cool. So, yeah. Again, sorry about the crappy lighting. I am streaming from inside, hoping that hoping that the Wi-Fi connection is stronger and that we won't get the same kind of network issues. But next week, I will be running a dedicated Ethernet line out to my external office where I've been trying to stream from. And so hopefully I'll be able to stream with my beautiful background. You can see the guitars again, they're beautiful, the electronic drum kit. But yeah, the lighting and the audio maybe aren't the best. So what are we going to be doing today? What's my favorite one of these? I reckon maybe a side-by-side. That's pretty cool. Although then it's still got that stupid background. All right, we'll do this one. Cool. So if you didn't join the stream last week, then this is all going to be brand new and fresh to you. So that's going to be great. And if you did join the stream last week, hopefully you don't notice if I reuse the exact same jokes or say the exact same dorky things. But yeah, regardless, what we're going to do is we are going to be working on this personal site that I have here, so johnmyers.io. The blog section of this, so where we've got articles, we've got a collection of different articles that I've published, and all of these are coming in from Notion. So if I scroll all the way to Notion, yeah, I've set up Notion in such a way that I can create these different articles and then kind of use Notion as my kind of management system for where everything's up to. So kind of like Trello, I can say, here are a collection of articles that I want to write, but they need a little bit more thought. And then here are some ones that I'm ready to create. Here are some ones that I'm working on. This one's done and ready to publish, and then it's actually been published on the site. And so I can keep a track of all of the different pieces of content that I want to create. But this is actually live wired up to my website. And so I'm using the Notion API, which this is the site here. And let's say that we're looking at just the list of all of my blogs. So this is a Next.js application. It's really, really complicated the way that I need to query all of this, which is something that we're actually going to be working through over the next few streams, making it much more simple. But yes, this is using the Notion API. So I create a new Notion client, and then I need to do this confusing block of stuff here, which is just to paginate over each of the articles. So basically, I'm just grabbing every article that has the status of published, and then yeah, all of those go into a big array of all of my different articles that I want to publish on my blog. And so all the way down here, it's returning, does a whole bunch of confusing logic to work out how it needs to display it all, and then it passes through articles as props to my component, and my component takes in those articles and just passes it to this article list thing, which just maps over them and yeah, and renders them out like this. So we get a list of all of the articles. But yeah, the really cool thing is, yeah, the really cool thing is that this is all just using ISR, so incremental static regeneration. If we scroll back down to the bottom, basically, this is going to create a static version of that page. And then every time someone visits it and refreshes, if it's been longer than 60 seconds since the last time it's rebuilt this site, then it's going to automatically rebuild a static version of it. And so, yeah, the really cool thing that enables is that if I go to my Notion page, this is from last week, so we can delete this one, whoops. So let's say that I wanted to publish a new blog. I can just create a new one here and say, this is my new blog. And then inside here, I have a few different bits of data that I need to set. So when I want it to be published, so let's say we published it yesterday, the category for this one can be article. I can have tags like, let's say this one's about Next.js. I can have a description to say, this is my awesome new blog. If this was part of a series or a link off to another resource, then I could add those, but these are all optional fields. And then I've got the actual body of my blog. So what I want to have in there. So I could say, hello, this is my cool list of blog things. And then we could have like a list saying, great content. Quick responses. Anyway, yeah, so this can be the content of my blog. And so I can keep a track of where this blog is up to. So let's say that I'm currently working on this one. And then when I have some time to sit down and write, I can open this one up and yeah, and flesh out my blog. And then the cool thing is, as soon as I am ready to publish this, when I move this over to the published column, that's all I need to do in Notion. And then automatically in the background, I don't need to do anything code-wise. I just need to refresh my blog once. And so now, since this has been more than 60 seconds since the last time this was built, Next.js will now magically be going off and doing the incremental static regeneration. And hopefully, if I refresh at some point, there we go. This is my new blog. And so that's now live on my website. And if we go to that, we see this is my new blog. And then we see that markup that I wrote in the Notion document. So all of this is kind of live linked to not only Notion, but how I use Notion to manage all of the bits of content that I want to create. Hey, I see Will Johnson is here. Hello, how are you? Thank you for dropping by the stream. If you've just tuned in, we are working through, oh really, we're redoing the stream from last week where we had too many technical issues for it to actually go live. And yeah, we're stepping through how I can publish blogs from Notion to my website. And then, yeah, we're going to spend some time rebuilding that so that we can use some cool stuff in Supabase to make this a little bit more simple. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. So yeah, so that's how I can publish a blog. And then likewise, if I'm like, I don't really like that, or I just, I don't want that to be published anymore, I realize that I need to add a little bit more to it. Maybe no one's going to find value in just this little block here. The next time someone refreshes my website, they refresh here, again, that's going to, in the background, start rebuilding this static page. And then when I refresh again, it's all gone. So yeah, so it's live linked to Notion, but rather than needing to wait for Notion to return the results for all of my different blogs and doing all of that at the time when the user is requesting the page, I can use incremental static regeneration to rebuild that static asset every time. But really, the reason that we need to do that is because the Notion API is just requires a lot of really, really complicated logic to be able to pull those articles out. So I've kind of got 3 different conceptual things on that page. So if we look at this list, like it just looks like a list of things. And I do need to improve the UI around this so that it is more clear. But this one here is has children articles. So this is an article series, and then each of these are articles that belong to that series. So this series has its own separate page which lists out all the different articles within that series, or we can jump to a particular article and then we can see that that's a part of a series because we have this kind of contents area here. So we have this concept of a series. We then have individual articles. So these are individual articles. If we click on this one, it's just an article that's standalone. It's not associated with any other, with a series or anything like that. And then the bit that I definitely need to improve the UX around is that this one is actually an external link that jumps off to Egghead. In fact, if Will is still here, Will's son created this, right? I believe this was this design was from Will Sun, which is awesome. But yeah, anyway, this was a case study that I wrote for Egghead, but in the UI of my blog. Yeah, shout out to Will Sun. That's awesome. Yeah, but in this page, it doesn't really tell you that this is an external link, whereas this is an internal blog. But yeah, point is there are three different kind of conceptual things here in this list. It's a list of series, so blog or article series, external articles, and then individual articles. And so if we look at how I'm grabbing this information from Notion, you'll see that I'm building up a collection of individual articles, external articles, so there's ones that link out to other places, and series articles, so there's ones that have children articles that are associated with them. Thanks for dropping by, Arbab. It is awesome for you to drop by and say thank you. And yes, if it's 1:30 a.m., please go to bed. It is that's not the kind of time you want to be reading through code, especially code this messy and complex. And we have planning some Supabase and Next.js stuff for fun. And yeah, and so what you're talking about here, Tony, about it being so easy to query across a collection of joined tables, this is the exact problem that I'm having with Notion at the moment, is that there is no concept of that. And so we can have relationships with other tables. So that's how we're doing the series that has a collection of articles underneath it. But there's no way to say, grab me, like in one query, you can't say, I want all of the serieses, and then I also want all of the individual articles that belong to that series. You kind of have to grab well, you can go either way. You can either go and grab all of the serieses and then iterate over every single series and make an additional request for the articles that belong to that series. Or so that's where you need to iterate over, and then you're making an additional request for every single article. The other way you can do it is get back all of the serieses and then make a request for any articles that belong to that series. So that's a little bit more efficient, but it still means that you're making an additional request to the database for every single series. So individual articles, we can get all of those back in one go. External articles, we can get all of those back in one go. And then series articles, we get all of the serieses back, but then we need to make an additional request for each series to grab all of the articles that are associated with it. So it gets very, very complicated trying to keep all of that to step through that querying logic, like we can see it here. So the reason that we're using a loop here, this isn't, it adds to the complexity, but the only reason that we have a loop, this do while loop, I wonder if I can put me over the other side, because it looks like I'm a little bit in the way there. Can I move me? All right, how about I just jump off the screen for a second? Don't worry, I'll come back. All right, so the reason that we have this while loop here is because in Notion you need to, it automatically will only give you back 100 results at a time. And so if you need more than 100 results, then you need to work out a way to implement pagination. And so this was my way of implementing it. So I've got a while loop that's going to, every time there are more articles, it's going to make another request for this. And then if there are more articles, it's going to make another request and then another request. And you'll see this start cursor is being set to whatever the next cursor is. So that's how you do pagination in the Notion API. But as you can see, this is just overly complicated. It's it's a lot of stuff to basically just say, give me all of the articles that have been published, and then I need to redo that. Well, because the way that Notion gives me back that data is just this huge, very complex blob of information. I kind of need to dig through it and say, all right, for each article, I want to grab the properties name, title, index 0, plain text. Like that's how I pull the title out. So it gets very, very complicated very quickly. So yeah, so this blob, I'm grabbing all of the articles that have been published. This blob, I'm iterating over them and just basically transforming it into the shape that I actually want to display on the page. So I don't care about all that other stuff. I just want a title, a slug, a description, a published date, and a category. I then need to do the same thing for article links. So again, we're doing this big, ugly while loop that's just iterating over and over and over to grab all of the article links that are published. And then I need to put that in the right form. And then doing the same thing for grabbing, this time from the series database. I'm grabbing all of the articles, so all of the series that are articles. So just quickly to make this a little bit more clear, in my this content that I want to publish, I've got individual articles, which are all of the articles, all of the external links, all of the articles that belong to series. It's just every individual piece of content that I want to be displayed on my page. And then some of those will link to series. So a series is like this one is a collection of articles that I wrote about building a SaaS platform with Next.js, Prisma, Auth0, and Stripe. And then the other one that I have written was build an e-commerce platform in 25 days using Next.js, NetFi, and Stripe. And you'll see there are a few more ones in that series. But this one is a video. So this is a collection of videos that I did. And then this one is a collection of articles that I did. So yeah, so conceptually we have a database for each series, so each collection of things. And then they have a reference to individual articles. Individual pieces of content. Yeah, it's very confusing. I made this overly complex, but now we get to kind of untease it a little bit and make it a much easier to work with. Cool. So yeah, so we need to go and get all of the series. So this is each one of the article series that's been published. And then, as I was saying before, I need to then map over each of those series and grab the articles that are in that series. So it's requiring an additional request to the database for each series that we get back. We then do one more transformation to turn it all into the right shape, and then we send it back. So yeah, this is just crazy and overly complex. And so what I would like to be able to turn this into is, rather than iterating over all of this stuff and using Notion, if I was to use something like Supabase, then I could essentially say await Supabase.from the articles table. I want to select, now I can say star here, but I could actually just list out each of these things that I actually care about, because I don't need to get back everything if I'm not using it. If I'm only using the title, slug, description, published date, and category, I could actually just say I only want those back from here. But just to simplify this a little bit, let's say we're grabbing all of the articles and we want to match, I guess, the category of, match is takes an object. So I want to match where the category is equal to article. And this statement here would replace all of this stuff. Actually, it would replace all of this as well. So yeah, this would be a much cleaner way to do it. And I could actually probably, I might need to make a separate request for the series. But the series, because there's that relationship, I could say if I want to grab, this would be like, we could have like all types of content in here. So this could be from our content table. We could grab all of the articles. with match, I think, yeah. Anyway, so I can grab all of the articles, which will give me those individual articles. And then I could say from series, give me all of the columns that match articles. So these are the article series. But because I have that relationship between series and content, because I know that the series, that there are a collection of content items that have a reference to a series ID, I could actually add to this request and say, I also want to grab the articles. So these are the articles that are a part of that series, and I want to grab all of the columns from that as well. So I could actually make the, I could grab the category article and also the category for article link all in one select, but I might keep them separate just to make it a little bit easier to conceptualize. But yeah, basically we could say const individual articles equals this, the external articles equal this, and then the series articles equals this. So yeah, these 3 lines, I mean, yeah, we could even get rid of this Notion one. Yeah, so these 3 lines would essentially replace all of this, all the way down to here. Yeah, I might need to do a little bit of massaging to put the collection in the right shape. Boop, boop. But yeah, all of this would essentially be replaced by, God, there's so much, just this. And so just these 3 lines. So this is what we're working towards, because then we would just have something like this where we'd say, all right, cool, get me all of those different articles, and then spread them all into one big articles array, sort them by the published date. So yeah, mix them all in together just based on the published date, and then put that through to my component. So yeah, this is what we want to work towards. But at the moment, we have, yeah, all of this really big, long, crazy amount of stuff. Yeah, so let's comment this out for now. And let's make sure that this is actually working. So let's say npm run dev. Make sure the state of my application isn't currently broken. And what are people saying? We have, is there a measurable performance benefit by listing specific columns versus returning star? Yes, Tony, there absolutely is. And so when we build this, we will be listing out every single one of those columns, because there's no reason to grab all of that extra data, all those extra columns, if we're not using them. And so we're unnecessarily sending a whole big bunch of data from the Supabase server all the way across to our, well, in this case, our Next.js server. So we're running get get static props, which is running server side at build time in Vercel. And so, yeah, we're unnecessarily sending all of this extra data from Supabase across to the Vercel servers for no reason. Like if we're just throwing away those columns, then we definitely don't want to send that across. And so by listing out those specific columns, if we say we only care about the title, the description, the slug, whatever we need, then we're only sending across that finite amount of stuff that we actually need to get the job done. And so, yeah, and so it makes it very, well, yeah, similar to the benefits that you can get from GraphQL. One of the really cool things about GraphQL is that the client can just select the bits of data that they actually care about, the bits of data that they're actually going to use, and so you don't overfetch a whole bunch of stuff that you're not actually going to display in your application. You can do the same thing with the Supabase library by just saying we only care about the title, and we only care about the description. And now we won't get any other columns, we'll only get the title and description. But just to simplify it for now, we're just going to say star. And then once we've kind of, usually I like to select everything while I'm like building out the application and then kind of go through and audit what do I actually need. And yeah, how can I simplify that? But yeah, good question. And I don't think we can see the Supabase query you wrote. Interesting. Do you mean this one here? Can you see that on the screen? Hopefully you can see it. I don't think we can see the Supabase query. Okay. Wait, what's currently displaying? Yes, this is my code editor. All right, let me know if you can't see that and I will work out what's going on. But yeah, awesome. All right, let's comment that back out and come across to here. Make sure we haven't got any errors. Okay, cool. Sorry, Tony's saying that it was, yeah, it's all good. All right, sweet. Now let's open up localhost, and we've got my application running locally. And if we look at articles, so I had clicked on articles, but you see it took a very, I need to get my face back on here. I need to see my expressions, my expressions of disgust when it takes too long to load this page. But yeah, you'll see there that took a really, really long time. And so if I refresh again, you'll see like it's refreshing, it's refreshing, it's refreshing. This is how long it takes to make that request, because it's making so many requests back and forth. Like it's making a request for the individual articles, it's making a request for the link articles, and then it's making a request for the series, and then it's making a request for each collection of articles within the series. So yeah, there's a lot of unnecessary stuff going on there. Yeah, and so we want to get rid of that. We want to make it as quick as possible, so it's just like making 1 or 2 requests and getting everything it needs from Supabase. But the other thing, like the reason that I still want to use Notion is that this way of publishing articles is just awesome. Like this, it's so nice being able to manage all of, like, this is basically just my brain dumped out here. And then this is just all of the things that I know about tech. This is the finite number of things that I know in my brain. And so I can like dump all of this into this Notion document and or this Notion board, and slowly work through building out these blogs. And when they're ready to publish, I can just chuck them in that channel. And not just the management of this, but like even just writing a blog, like this is just such a nice way to publish content. Like I can just be in here and I don't need to think about like if I need a quote, I can just say, this is cool. And then that's just going to turn into a quote on the other side when it's rendered to my page. And if I want to have like a code block and I want that code block to be GraphQL, then I can just do that. I can drop a code block in there. I found so previously this was written in Sanity, using the Sanity CMS. And I felt like there was so much kind of context switching, grabbing, like telling it that I needed it to be a code block and telling it what type of code block it needed to be. And I just felt like it wasn't a smooth enough process. And any of those like friction points that are in the way mean that I just don't publish things because I never have time to actually to sit down and write. And so having something that's so frictionless on the publishing side, on the creation side, is really important to me. So using something like Notion for this is perfect. It's just that pulling that data out again to display it in the application is just a bit tedious. Yeah, and so yeah, the reason that I want to add Supabase for the querying side is it makes the querying side really, really simple, which means that building additional features in my application, I don't need to keep having that overhead of all of the stuff that's that querying logic. But the reason that I don't want to move the publishing stuff to Supabase is that then I would have to essentially build this thing myself. I would have to build a Notion interface or go into my Supabase database and like write my blog in like like in basically an Excel spread, I mean an Excel cell, which would not be fun at all. And so by building this system, I kind of get the benefits of both. I get to publish my content in Notion, but then I get to take advantage of all of the querying performance-y stuff that I can get from Supabase. Yeah, cool. So hopefully I've justified it enough. Hopefully everyone's on board as to what we're going to spend a whole bunch of time building. Cool. So I guess let's get into it. Was there anything else I needed to do? No, we got this running. Everything's running locally. Everything's working. All right, cool. So I guess the next bit is let's create a new Supabase project. So I'm going to go to supabase.com. And we're going to create a new project. And then we're going to say John Myers blog. The password for this. How are we going to do this? This is what I went through last time. I'm just going to set it to this one for now. And then, yeah, never reuse your passwords. Reusing passwords is bad, but also exposing database passwords on streams is more bad. So I'm just going to go with that. For the region, you want to select something that is close to, well, I guess if the only thing that would be requesting this would be your Vercel app, then you'd want it as close to that as possible. But since we're just going to be doing a lot of testing stuff here, I'm going to make it as close to me as possible. So I'm going to say Sydney, just so we don't have to sit around waiting for things to load. And now I'm going to create this project on the free tier. It's nice that Supabase don't make me pay for creating Supabase projects for Supabase. That would be mean. Cool. So while we're waiting for that, we've got Tony saying, I love Notion for sure. I'm wondering how comments in the Notion doc are handled by Notion's API. Do they come across in the body of the document? That is a very good question. I recommend checking out the Notion API docs, because they started off with a very slim amount of things that were supported, and then they've slowly been adding different types and things that they support through the API. And so, like when I started, when I refactored my application from Sanity to Notion, they didn't support code blocks, for example, and so that was a really terrible thing that I didn't realize until the end of when I was trying to get the code blocks to actually display on the page, and they weren't displaying, and I was getting very frustrated that I had just moved everything across and that it didn't actually serve my needs. So I think there is a list of all the different bits that are supported somewhere. Sorts, blah 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 blah. Properties, maybe. Yeah, so these are, I think, all the different types that are supported currently. And it doesn't look like there are comments, but yeah, somewhere in the Notion API documentation, there is a list of all the things that they actually support. And so if they support comments currently, then it'll show you like how it comes back. So what properties to expect. But yeah, not sure if it supports comments currently. We could just actually use a search, couldn't we? Comment. Okay. Let's say that it doesn't support it. But yeah, it could. Have a look through, see if it, see what it does support. See, I'm getting too obsessed with it. I want to know now. Comments. All right. Yeah, you'll need to look into the documentation and check it out. But yeah, if they don't support it now, they probably will support it in the future. But it would be an interesting one because, yeah, it would probably come in as like an array of things as children on that text block or something like that. Yeah, sweet. All right. So what are we doing now? Back to our Supabase. No, that was perfect. Thank you for asking that, because you've allowed me to to kind of distract everyone long enough for my whole Supabase project to go and be created and it scale up all that infrastructure and everything. So now we're ready to go, which is awesome. So if you're not familiar with Supabase, this is the Supabase dashboard. So I've created a new project. Supabase handles database hosting for you. It handles authentication, it handles file storage, and it also handles real-time, so you can subscribe to real-time events. We won't be doing much of any of that. We'll basically be using just the database and then the Supabase.js library to query the database. Yeah, we'll be looking, because we'll need to sync this stuff to Notion, we'll be looking at some cool ways that we can do things like, I think we'll probably create a cron server. So something that sits there checking the time essentially, and every hour or something like that, we can go and sync all of the stuff from Notion into our Supabase database. Yeah, I think that'll be the way that we will do it once we get to that stage. But for this stream, I think we'll probably just be building this out and maybe creating the function that populates this database, like ingests all of that data from Notion. And in future streams, we'll continue building on this until we get to that point where we have this like automated system that's just running in the background and yeah, grabbing everything that we need. Cool. So yeah, so I think that's it for here. So we're going to jump over to the table editor for the database, which is also here on the left. And we're going to start building out our schema. So as I said, we've got two kind of conceptual things. We've got a piece of content, which can be a video, an article, a link. It can be associated with a series, whatever. We've got just one concept of a content piece. And then we have our series, so anything that is that high level series that kind of groups together a collection of articles. So let's start with our series. And we can say this is a collection of pieces of content. Sorry if this keyboard is very, very clicky. Yeah, I don't usually use my mechanical keyboard out in the external office, but I need to use it inside. Cool. So let me actually set this up so that I can just, oh, not like that. Oh no, it's all over. All right, let me fix this. Make this big. All right, cool. So now we can just swipe. Yeah, cool. We can swipe between these two to get all of these different columns. So this is going to be one of these series things. So we can look here as to what bits of data we actually want to store in our database. Tony's got to go. Sweet. Thank you for the support. Enjoy the rest of your morning or afternoon or day or night or whatever, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for stopping by and thanks for asking awesome questions. All right, cool. So we have this series, and these are all the different columns that we're going to want to create on our table. So we can start off with a title. So if we come back to here, each piece or each series is going to need a title. That title is going to be of type text. And then we can say that we want this to be not nullable. So basically this just means we can't have an empty column for this because it doesn't really make sense for us to have a published piece of content and it not have a title. Like what would we display in our application? So we're going to untick this box, which means that we can't store an empty value in this column. So this is our title up here. And then we have a status. So these statuses are those different options that I was showing before, where we have working on it or ready to publish or any of those different statuses. Since we're basically just going to be using this database as like our publishing pipeline. So we don't really need to store all of the bits of content that aren't ready to publish, because we're only using this database to show the published articles on our site. So I'm going to leave status off, because we will only pull out bits of content or series that are published and put them in our database. Cool. So then we have a published date. So if we come back to here, we can add a column for published date. And this one, I guess we would want to be a date. And again, we don't want this to be nullable, because we would need there to be a date to determine where in the list it needs to display. So yeah, also not nullable. Our next one is, you're just going to have to put up with me swiping the wrong way every single time. Category. And so these categories are for a series. This is just article or video. So yeah, let's add a category. Now, in good database design, we would make, because there is a finite number of options for this category, we would probably make this category an enum, which is basically, it's like, yeah, a finite collection of options for the value of this column. I believe in the UI, we don't have the ability to add an enum, so we're just going to make this text. But yeah, something that you might want to do is either you could create a constraint that limited the values that could be put in that text field, or you could use the SQL editor, which I'll show you later, that gives you direct access to your underlying database, and you could just create the category column as an enum. But anyway, that's just if we wanted to design this well, so that we can actually assume that the category is only one of those finite options. But since we'll probably only be selecting specific categories. So really, if it doesn't fall into one of those categories, it would just be excluded anyway. It's not like it's going to blow up our application. So yeah, so this should be fine. All right, so we've got a text, and this category we definitely want to be not nullable, because yeah, we'd always want there to be a category, because again, we're relying on that for how we're going to display it in our application. We then have related to content. So this is a relationship in Notion that connects it to the pieces of content that are associated with it, but we'll be going the other way. We'll be creating a relationship from the content to this series. So we don't need to worry about this field. We've then got a description. And again, this is going to be text. The description we also want to be not nullable. And then we have the actual content here. And so, as I said before, this supports Markdown. And so like if I have a list, then it comes out as a list. So it respects that rich text stuff, which means this isn't just one big text field. This is actually I think at the moment it's just Markdown, but maybe I think we'll look at adding some MDX in the future. But yeah, for now it's Markdown, but we're going to call the column MDX, because eventually we want to be able to store MDX in there as well. So I'm imagining that we probably just want to do that like translation from the raw, the rich text into MDX when we're before we write this to the database. So again, it keeps that querying logic as simple as possible, where we're just like pulling out the values in the MDX column, and then we're just rendering them to the page. So we are just going to make this one big text field, because that will just be the stored result of our conversion to MDX, or our conversion to Markdown. And then, yeah, we just need to remember to do that before we write it to the database, instead of assuming it's there. So again, this will always have MDX, I believe. There might be some articles, some things that should, but anyway, let's say this is not nullable, because we'll need that to display on our page as well. And then that's it for our our series. Actually, one thing that comes to mind that I kept messing up in the last stream is that our ID here is an int8, but we'll be using the ID that we get back from our Notion document, because then we'll know if we need to update that, if it changes or anything like that. So the primary key that we'll use is actually the ID that we've been given from Notion. So this ID here, rather than being an int8, we just need to make that a UUID, which is given to us by Notion. Cool. So that's it for a series. So we'll save that, and it's going to go and create our series table and then add all of our columns. And once that's done, we can look at creating our content. All right, any more comments? Nothing at the moment. Cool. All right, we have our series table. And so now we're going to create another table for our content. And so again, this is our individual pieces of content. Yeah, we probably don't need to specify, but these are just any individual pieces of content. So they can be articles, they can be videos, they could be links, they could be series articles. Any of those pieces of content can go in here. So again, we're going to change this to be a UUID, because that's what we're going to get back from Notion. And then let's look at what a piece of content has. So if we have a look at this one, so again, we've got a title, which is going to be text. So let's say title, and this one is of type text. Again, we want this to be not nullable. We then have a status. And so, yeah, again, we're just going to assume that they're all published, because we would only put it in the database if it's ready to be published. So we need a published date. Published date, which is going to be of type date. This one is going to be not nullable. We then have a category, which will be of type text. And again, would be good if we could do an enum of a finite number of values. So it's only ever an article, a series article, a video, a series video, and a video link, an article link, a video course link, or test. I don't know what test is doing in there. That was obviously a test that I never fixed. And so tags, we're not actually using tags currently. This is something that I will add in the future, but yeah, we probably don't need to worry about it now. Yeah, let's leave it off. All right, description. This is going to be of type text. All right, description is going to be text and is going to be not nullable. So now we have a link, a series, and a position in series. So this link is only ever present if we have, if it's an article link or a video link, so something that links off to an external resource. This series is only populated if this piece of content is related to a series, and then this position in series is only there if we have a series. So which article is it, or which video is it in that series of articles? So is it the first article? Is it the 8th article? That's what the position in series is. So all three of these fields are optional, and so we definitely don't want them to. We want them to be nullable. So let's create our link, which is just going to be a URL. So that could be text. We want a so we're going to say series ID. So we're going to link this to the series that it's associated with. So we can click this little lock icon here, and this lets us choose a table that we want to reference. So in this case, we want to reference the series table, and the column that we want to reference is that ID column. So we click save, and that will set up a foreign key relationship for us in the background, so we don't need to worry about that. And then we had position in series, which is going to be a number. And since it's only going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe up to like 20 or something, we probably don't need it to be an int 8, which can store a huge integer. We probably just want it to store a fairly small integer. So we're going to go int 2. This is just a saving space thing. It really doesn't matter in this day and age of database storage. You really, we've basically got unlimited storage. It's not gonna make a difference storing an int 2 or an int 8, but it's good to get into these to do good practices when they're easy. Cool. So we have our position in series. I think that's everything. So we've got our link, our series ID, our position in series. Oh yeah, and then we need our MDX chunk, which again is going to be text, and we want this one to be not nullable. Cool. I think that's everything. ID is UUID. We're linking off to our series ID, which is a UUID. Cool. So let's save that one. It's going to create our content table and all of our columns. And Jacob, you are asking, how can you handle user roles in Supabase? Like only admins can update a table, for example. What does the RLS look like for that? Yeah, we probably won't jump too much into RLS here, just because we're going to be all of this is only going to be ever performed by one user. Actually, yeah, you're right. We probably should be. We probably should be turning on RLS, so that we are the only ones that can actually do this. In fact, you're 100% right. We have to turn on RLS, but we might leave it off for now, just while we're doing this bit, and turn it on once we are actually selecting the data. But very, very good question. So how would we do it if we wanted only admins to update the table? So in RLS, if we enabled RLS, so for anyone unfamiliar, row level security is how we do authorization in Supabase. So this is a way that we can write access policies in our database itself, so that we, so the database can decide who can see that content or who can't, which is, much more efficient than having an additional API that you need to go through, and is a special thing that we can do in Supabase, because if you do all of your authorization with Supabase, we already know who the user is that's trying to select that content or update that content. So yeah, if we had RLS on and we wanted to create a policy for update where only admins can update, then we would just say, auth.role is a function that will give us back the role of our user. I don't think that actually has admin in it, so you might need to do a little bit of manual stuff yourself, but you basically be saying, if some column that I care about, or the user who's currently selecting this as role is equal to admin, then it would let it through. And then we would just copy that with check as well. I forget what the difference is, but one of these is for actually updating, and one of these is selecting, I think. But yeah, usually you just make them the same rule. So auth.role is equal to admin, and auth.role is equal to admin. This should be all you would need to do if you wanted to lock something like this down. You would just need to do a little bit more work to actually add that role to your user. Yeah, cool. Hope that answers that question. But for now, whoa, I think I just swiped backwards and it took me out of the stream, which seems like a dangerous thing to be able to do accidentally by swiping. But yeah, let me know if you can't hear or see me or something, and I will fix that up. But yes, don't swipe while talking, and yeah, you won't be removed from the screen. All right, so you should be able to see this again, and hopefully I'm back. but yeah, that's how you would handle RLS. But because we are, yeah, we probably should just have RLS enabled. So let's enable RLS for both of these, because it's always a good idea. You'll see that RLS is not enabled was yellow, and now RLS enabled is green, and that's because not having RLS on is yellow. It's caution. Proceed with caution, but having RLS on is all good, green. Yeah, so RLS just means that it when we turn it on, it locks down everything on the table, so we can't do any select, insert, updates, or deletes. And then we need to write a policy to enable each of those actions. So it's a good idea for us to enable this now. And then once we are actually selecting the data, we can look at adding a policy for that user. Yeah, cool, awesome. Hope that answered your question. And thank you, Jacob, for confirming that you can hear and see me again. Excellent. Sweet. So we have our different tables now. And so we probably want to populate them with some data. So the way that I'm thinking we will do this is by creating an API route. So this will be a serverless function that will run in often Vercel, and we'll use this to select all of the data from Notion and write it to our Supabase database. So we're going to call this one ingest Notion to Supabase. Yeah, obviously the name of this really doesn't matter. But this is just going to take the stuff from Notion, select it out of Notion, write it to Supabase. So then from our client, we can just select it from Supabase rather than needing to use Notion. So we can export default one of these. This is something that I've started doing recently, and I'm not sure if it's good or bad. It seems like it's faster, but this is opposed to saying like const handler equals and then a function and then saying export default handler. Like it just takes so long to write when I could just say export default and then not need any of this and just say export default the function. Feels like it gives you a little bit less context as to what you're doing, but I don't know. I think I like it. Less characters is always good. And this one receives a request and a response. And then we are going to return res.send, and I'm going to send back all good, just so we can check this is working. So now if we go to our localhost and we go to /API/ingest Notion, just say to Supabase. That's a terrible name. Cannot read property undefined, reading send, res.send. Interesting. Have I forgotten how to code again? I probably have forgotten how to code again. I don't think it's this. Let's see. Oh my God, it is that. All right. Ugh. Cool. All right. So we get our request and our response, and we're sending back all good. Sweet. So now we just need to pull in our Notion API. So we can import, I forget what the name of it is, and I forget where it comes in from as well. All right, let's just cheat and go here and say we want to import client from @NotionHQ/client. And then we want to create a new client. So we'll say client equals, and we need to pass it our secret. Okay, Notion equals that. That's better. Notion. Okay, so we have our Notion client, and now we can go and select all of the stuff from Notion. So again, we have our do while data. All right, yeah. Let's just copy it. What are we doing? Why are we writing this manually? Let's grab this. All right, we have our do while, And this assumes we have something called data. So let's say data is equal to an empty curly bracket. So creating an object for data, and then we need a individual articles. So I guess we just want to grab out all of the content, don't we? So I'm just going to say let content equal an empty array. And then each time we get back some content, we're going to spread it into there. So again, this is just doing pagination. So this is a loop that just goes over and over and over again to paginate those results. I just realized you probably couldn't see the content part because my face was in the way. But yeah, each time we get content, we're spreading in new content. This will grab us all of the articles, but we actually want, well, basically we just want all bits of content. How do we want to do this? Let's say, oh yeah, because we do want all of, we just want content. This is much more simple than this. So we can get rid of this and get rid of this. And now all we're filtering on is that the article, that the piece of content is published. So this is going to give us every article link, video link, series article, series video, all of those different bits of content we're going to get with this one loop. Cool. Oh, my trackpad has decided to freak out. All right. So Notion, going to the database, getting all the stuff. So let's see what the stuff looks like. Actually, well, even better, so that we can format it nicely. Let's just send it back as the response. And now in here, we should be able to say, go and run this. And it's going to fail to compile because we're using await and we haven't declared that this is an async function. Cool. And now we refresh again. We get this big array of content. And then each of these is our big, scary, ugly thing that we get back from Notion. And so we've got the top level stuff, and then we've got different properties. So if we want to dig in, this is what I was saying before, how we have this really big, deeply nested object that comes back from Notion. And so we kind of need to dig through all the different bits that we care about. So if we want the title, we have to go to name. We then have to go to title, which is for some reason an array. We grab out index 0, and then we can grab out text and go to content, or we can grab out plain text. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess digging through all of these different bits. But thankfully, I have already done that once in each of these queries here. I'm just wondering if I can fix my trackpad because this is frustrating. The old turn it off, turn it back on. Does that fix it? Come back to me, trackpad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said that stuff about you. You're great. You're my favorite trackpad. No, didn't work. All right. Do I have a cable? I don't think I have a cable. Oh, well. We'll just be uncomfortable for a while. That's fine. Cool. So this is the stuff that I wanted to do to turn that article into the right shape. So you'll see here, I've got my title. I'm digging into properties, name, title, index 0, plain text. So that's what I just went through. The slug, we're doing that. The description, we're doing that. So we're going to do this if it is an individual article. So yes, this is something that I ran into last time as well. We're going to have to, so we get back this big thing of content. We are going to have to iterate over that content and kind of morph the shape of it, like transform it into the right shape differently for each type of of category that it might be. So if that doesn't make any sense, let's just start with if is a individual article. So let's come back here. So we're going to say, we're going to want to map over all of our content. So let's say const transformed content on the way. No, not quite. All right, let's just scroll down a bit more there. Ah, you stupid trackpad. All right, transformed content is equal to content.map. We're going to map over each bit of content, and then we're going to do some stuff. So I think the easiest way to do this is to say if c dot category is equal to, let's say, article. So we'll do article first. Then we want to return, I might dump it here because I don't think we want to return all of this. We just want to return this bit. Yeah. And then we need to take all of these articles and just make them C. So it's this bit of content that's coming in here. So we want to grab, oh, we've got an extra set of brackets too. All right, cool. So if this is an article, then we just care about this stuff. So we just care about our title, which we want to be that bit. Our slug, slug is something that we did not add to our Supabase database because that is being calculated here. So yeah, that's a good thing to add. So let's jump into our Supabase database, and for our content, we want to add a column. And this is why I love using Supabase, because I can just really easily click around and add columns instead of needing to Google what the syntax to do this in SQL might be. So again, this is going to be a text field, and we want this to not be nullable. So we always want this to have a value because we need to know where we're going to. Actually, that's not true, because a external article does not have, and an external video does not have a slug. Okay, so if we come back to slug, another reason I love Supabase is I can edit a column. I wonder if it'll let me actually add this though. Maybe. Awesome. Oh man, go Supabase. I need to stop saying things like this. It makes me just seem like a soulless salesperson. I do like Supabase. I legitimately like Supabase. I know they pay me as well, but I also really like Supabase. The reason that I work at Supabase is because I liked it before I worked here. Cool. So our slug is now possible to be nullable. So yeah, because if we have an article link or a video link, they go off to an external resource. And so it doesn't make sense for it to have a slug, because a slug is more for content that lives inside, like locally to our, basically within our URL. So if it's johnmyers.io/something, that's a slug. But if it's egghead.io/something, then that's an external link. And so, yeah, we don't want a slug for that one. We just want slugs for local content. I think that's right. And we're also going to want slugs for our series, because our series also has a local page for each series. Do I want that to be nullable? Oh man, the big choices you need to make. It's yeah, it's really not going to matter. So let's just leave it as allow nullable. Whoops. And we want the type of this to be text. And now we have those columns. So back here, we can grab our slug. So if it's an article, then our slug is at /blog/ and then a slugified version of our title. Now, because we're doing this twice, actually, we're going to do it twice. Yeah, everything's going to have a title. So we're going to be smart about this, and we're just going to do it once up here. We're going to say const title equals this thing, because that is always going to be there no matter what type of content it is. And then we can just return our title, which means that here we can slugify rather than this big scary thing. We can just slugify our title. And then we have a description. We have a published date because we're transforming this into the shape that we want for the database. We're going to use snake case, so that's going to be published underscore date. And that's the date that we're going to grab. And then the category is going to be that category. So that's interesting, yes, because this won't be c.category. This will be c.properties.category.select.name. So let's grab that. And again, that's something that we're going to need over and over and over again. So let's say our category is this. And then here we can just say, if that category is equal to article, then we want to do all this stuff. And here we can just return that category. Cool. So we have our title, we have our slug. We're going to need our ID, because remember I said that we are using the UUID version of the ID, which comes to us from Notion. Actually, we can have a look. We can look here. The last time we made this request. So this would be each piece of our content. And then inside that, we have a .id. So this is going to be the ID that we're going to use. So here we can say ID is going to be c.id. Easy. All right, so we've got an ID, we've got a title, we've got a slug, we've got a description, we've got a publish date, we got a category. So this should work for articles. Is there, maybe if we go, how do we want to do this? Let's just do this quick and dirty and say we want to filter out anything where c.id is equal to category c.category is equal to article. So I'm just doing this quickly so that we can see only the articles. So if I say transformed articles, then when I come back here and refresh, slugify is not defined. That's true because we need to bring in our slugify function from utils. So this slugify function is very simple. Where are we? Utils, slugify. This one just takes in words. So it takes in whatever the title is, and then it uses this slugify function from npm, but we want to force it to be lowercase. And then we want to replace any of the dots with dashes. So basically, the reason this part is here is because I'm constantly writing articles about Next.js. So let's say create next. Well, let's say that the title was create Next.js. The slugified version of this, by default, if I just used this this slugify function, then this would be, what would the slugified version be? It would just be, no, it would keep the capital. So it would say create Next.js app with hyphens. So this would be what the default version of this would be. So then when I convert it to lower, that's saying I want each of these to be lowercase. And then this part is saying if there's any full stops like this one, then I want to replace them with a dash. So this becomes next-js-app. Yeah, just a little bit of slug theory for you there. So if I come up here and import that slugify function, then this should be all good because this will, I've also, I guess, misspelled transformed. It's not transformed articles, it's transformed content. Save this, come back here, refresh. Cannot read undefined category of category. Are you sure? Seems like you should be able to. So we're mapping over each category and we're pulling out the category from here. We're then checking if the category is that, and where if it's that, oh, maybe we need to say, give it a default case and just return an empty object if we don't have anything. Just because then this will, yeah, this should then work because then this would be undefined. Otherwise, this would, yeah, makes sense. Let's do that. Cool. All right, so now we just get back those 3 bits of content, which are the individual articles that we've published. So yeah, and you'll see that we've got this in a much more sensible shape. We've just got an ID, a title, a slug, a description, a publish date, and a category. And I think that's ID. If this is a piece of content, we have our ID is created for us, title, publish date, category, description, link will be set to null, that's fine. Series ID will set to null, position in series, MDX, yes. So yeah, we need an MDX. Yeah, we won't do that now. We'll just say MDX is equal to the description for now, just because that's another text field. And yeah, we'll look at converting that later. So now this should be in the shape that, oh, come on, of course. What am I doing? This. All right, and cool. We have, at least for articles, we have this in the shape that we want to write it to the database. So we could just test at this point that this is working before we go much further. So let's say here we want to insert into Supabase. So we don't actually have Supabase installed yet. Awesome, because I haven't actually used it on my blog yet. So we're going to install at Supabase/Supabase.js. I might be in the way for that, but it will pop up soon, or I can do this. So we're doing npm install Supabase/Supabase.js. I can then say npm run dev. Actually, before I do that, we're going to need some keys and things. How am I going to do this? Oof. All right. I'm going to trust you, stream. Don't do anything crazy. All right. Actually, I don't trust you. I'm sorry. Let's pull this off screen for a second. Up. All right. So so that you don't just have to stare at a blank screen, let's go and play with fire here and see whether I can get the URL and the keys without you seeing properly, because they should be obfuscated correctly. So I'm going to come across to settings and go to, settings, API, and then we have our anon key, our service key, and our URL. So if we were making requests on behalf of the client, we would use the anon key because this allows us to enforce RLS, which is what we were talking about before, row level security. Because we are making this request on the server side, we're not making it on behalf of the user, we're just making it from a serverless function and doing stuff to the database. I'm going to use the service role key. And then we also need the URL. So what can I do here without showing you? No, I can't do it. So I'm going to I've created a .env file. So that contains all of my environment variables, all my secret little bits. And so I'm going to copy my anon key and paste it into that file. I'm going to copy my URL. So these two values, as long as you've got RLS enabled, these two values are totally fine to be public. So I could actually show you. But the one that I'm going to be using, which is a big no-no, that's why it says secret here, and that's why it's all obfuscated here, is our service role key. Now, if I reveal this, you should just get part of it. So surely you can't guess the rest. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to move out of here. Let's go here. And then over here, I'm going to dump that in. I'm going to save it. And so if you pause the video, you can get a section of my service key and try and guess the rest. It makes it slightly less secure, but I reckon it'll be all right. All right, let's come back to here, bring this back across now that I can trust you again. All right, so I've put that in my .env file, which means that it is now available to me as process.env, blah, blah, blah. Oh, actually, I have to pull this off screen again. Sorry, because I actually did. I exposed it to the client. All right, cool. Look at our Supabase service key. Close that, bring this back across. All right, everything's fine. So yeah, if I was to create, just so I can show you what I was talking about. If I was not there, maybe at the root, if I was to create a .env.local file, so this is what you would do. You'd say next _ public _ Supabase URL, and then you'd grab your URL from here. So back in API, grab the URL. And then we'll copy that same, copy that same thing and make our key. So this will be our anon key. And then if we have next _ public _ this is going to expose this to the client. So this will be available in both a Next.js client as well as our server-side stuff. So in Next.js, that's get server-side props, get static props, and any of our API routes. So if we have this in front of it, it means that it's also available in the client, so it's available in the browser. But if we leave it off, things like our service key, which we definitely wouldn't want exposed to the client, we can paste that in here. And yeah, and then these values would be available to us in our Next.js application. But we have an env file already. So I'm going to delete this one. All right, cool. So all of that was just to add our environment variables so that we can actually create a Supabase client. So now let's say we want a new utils file for Supabase.js. And then in here, we want to import create client from, oh man, it sucks that my IntelliSense or my autocomplete isn't working, /Supabase.js. You can see I've done this a few times before. And then we want to export default. What do we want to do here? Do we want to create a, I'm just thinking, so let me explain what I'm thinking. I want to create a client, but because, as I said before, I'm making this request on behalf of a server, I'm not making it on behalf of a particular user. I want to use my service key to create the client rather than my anon key. But if I try to do that, and I try to import it on the client, that environment variable won't exist and it will fail, which should actually be fine. Actually, now that I think about it, let's just try create client. Let's run into the problem first and then talk about how we're going to fix it. So process.env.next _ public _ Supabase URL. And then we also need the to service Supabase service key is what we're going to use. And now, if we come here and we import Supabase from utils/Supabase, this should import the client. Yeah, so that makes sense because we would never import this on the client because we're only doing this server side. So this should be fine. So now we have our Supabase client. So we should be able to say Supabase.from our content table. We want to insert some values. And so this takes a big array of stuff. In our case, that array of stuff is going to be our transformed content. And then this is an async call. So we could say const data equals await that thing. So we can see what we get back. And actually, that's what we could send back from here. So we could send back, what did we get back from Supabase? And so now we should be selecting all of our stuff out of Notion, turning it into the shape that we want, and then writing it to Supabase. So let's see if that's working. Come across, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this over here. And we're going to refresh this page, which is going to fail because we don't have our client running. So we're going to say npm run dev. Then if I refresh here, almost, identifier data has already been declared. That is totally valid. So we are going to rename this to be Supabase data. And then we're going to send back the Supabase data. Also, you're missing my face over there. Do you want my face back? There we go. Beautiful. All right. Cool. So now we have our Supabase data, which is what we're sending back as the response. So now if we refresh here, we get nothing. Interesting. All right, let's see if that inserted into our Supabase database. So if we come across to our content, we see some content. So that has been inserted correctly, which means that Supabase data that we got back here was not what we were expecting. Why didn't it print anything out? Let's try that again. Supabase data is set to null. So what do we get back from an insert? Let's go and check the documentation. Supabase JavaScript insert. We insert that stuff. We should get back data. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. All right, never mind. Thought I had something. I don't have anything. Something else that is interesting here is that if I refresh now, we'll actually see. Actually, no, I'm using the. That time it actually should have been set to null. All right, let me actually just check something here. Let's get back our error. And if we have an error, I want to console log it out. Because I think something has failed silently in the background here. So if I refresh this again, we get back null, and so that's fine. But if I have a look at my console, we get back error, duplicate key, value violates unique constraint, content, primary key. So what this is saying is this ID here already exists in the database. And that's because it does already exist in the database because we've already inserted these ones. So if we're trying to insert again, then it's basically going to say, why are you trying to insert the same ID? I don't want to do with that. So we can use upsert for this. And something I tried in the last stream that didn't work properly was I tried to upsert like this, just using from and then upsert instead of instead of passing it as a parameter to insert, and something didn't work. But let's see if we try to upsert this. Now, if we refresh our page, we get back Supabase data. Okay, cool. Okay, so those three have been written. And if I refresh again, it writes them again, and refresh again, it writes them again. So what upsert does is if the if we try to insert, then it's going to insert these values, so the ID of this with all of these values. And if we try and insert again, because this ID matches, it's throwing an error saying that that already exists. So what upsert does is if it doesn't exist, then it will insert it with all these values. If it does exist, then it will update these values. That's where the up part of it comes from. So upsert is either update or insert. So now, if it exists, we're just updating the values. If it doesn't exist, we're inserting a new one. So if I was to, like, let's say I just deleted this second row. So now we have this one and this one. So when we try and do our upsert, it will recognize that this one is already exists, and it will just update these values. It will realize that this one already exists and update these values, but then it will realize the other one doesn't exist, and it will insert it into the table. So if I refresh this again, and then we have a look at our database, we'll see that we have those three again. Awesome. Okay, so that is how we insert our articles. So this only has the category of articles. I'm just wondering whether we have time to go through another one. Hey, Will Bevan, I did reappear, and what does the network tab show? All right, you're trying to help me debug it. Yeah, good call. I should have just jumped to the network tab. But yes, we got it back in a working state. We're all good. So I'm just wondering whether I have enough time to implement the other types of data. And I think I do. So let's give it a go. So rather than filtering off just the articles here, we want to do the next type. So the next type can be a series article. I believe that's what it's called. Let's have a look. The type is series article. So this is an article that belongs to a bigger series. So if we want to do this, it means that we need to have already inserted all of our series in, because we're going to need a series ID. So we need a second one of these where we're going to get all of our different series. We're going to need to do something like this. There we go. Sorry, lost people for a second. So we're going to want to do one of those, which means that we need to set data back to an empty object. Cool. And then we iterate over, rather than our articles database, we want to go to our series database. And again, we just want to grab anything that is published. Rather than being content, this will be series. Now we should have grabbed all of our published series, regardless of whether they are a article or a video. If you're just dropping into the stream now, that's going to be very confusing as to what I'm rambling about. But let's say const transformed series is equal to series.map over each s. And for each s, we want to do some stuff. So if it, actually, all of our series are exactly the same, regardless of whether it is a video or a whether it's a video or a article. Let me confirm that. All right, so if we come to series, Thankfully, we've only got 2, so we don't need to look very deeply, but all of these things are there. And then for the other one, all these things are here. So yeah, so these are exactly the same regardless of whether they are a video or an article. So we don't actually need to treat them separately. We can just say, yeah, okay. So it will be similar to this. We'll say we want to grab out our title and our category, and then we want to return an object. And actually, it'll look very similar to this, won't it? Because in our series, we have an ID, we have a title, we have a slug, we have a description, we have a publish date, we have a category, and we have MDX. And I'm pretty sure that's all we have. We have a title, we have a publish date, we have a category, we have a description, and we have an MDX, and we have a slug. Cool. All right. So that should be all we need to actually do for series. So before we insert all of our content, we want to insert, so let's say this is series data, which is equal to await supabase.from series. We want to upsert our list of transformed series. Cool, and that should be it. So then we've got series data. This one we'll now call content data. And so we insert our series. So the reason that we needed to do this first, what's this blue about? We'll worry about it later. Cool. So the reason that we needed to put in our series first is if we want to insert a series article, then we need to tell it which series ID it belongs to. So all of this other stuff stays consistent, but then our series ID is going to be set to something. So let's work out what that is. This is going to take a little bit. All right. I can cheat again by saying dot filter. Can I cheat again? Yeah. All right. Filter our content by content.category equaling series article. And now if I comment out this whole section, I will see what's coming back. Sorry, my head was probably in the way. I can see what's coming back from Notion. Sorry, that was a roundabout way of just seeing the data that we want. So here, if I refresh this, this should only be series. No, what am I talking about? C. What's its problem? Transformed series. That's because it's not a C. It is transformed series. None of these are C dots. They will be S dots. And now we refresh again. And we get Supabase data is not defined, which is also totally valid. Is it valid though? Oh yeah, content data. But what we really want to see, yes, no, no, yes, no. What we want to see is our transformed content. Oops. We want to see our transformed content, and we can probably just comment out all of this Supabase stuff, because all we're trying to do here is find out what is in a series article so that we can work out how we pull out the series ID. So if we come back to here and refresh, sorry, there's a little bit of jumping around. I'm just trying to get it done in the next 5 minutes, which is totally not going to happen. That's because I've said to return this, whereas I want to return C. All right, we want to return the original object if it's not an article. And then we want to just pull out the series articles, meaning we will actually see what we have. Still not working. Okay. What is happening here? So we're pulling out our transformed content. That's what we're saying back there, which should be all good. We're mapping over our content. And then after that, we're pulling out anything. That's why. Because C, we'll get there. We'll get there. We want this one down here. So we haven't made it series.category. It's series dot blah, 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 that we get back from Notion. Okay, nearly there. Cannot read undefined of category. Not nearly there. This is content mapping over C. So we would get back that. Otherwise, we would return C. So then we're filtering on that and saying c.properties.category.select.name is series article. So why would that not exist? Why would that not exist? This is our content, right? All right. Maybe we're not going to have time to get through this. All I am trying to do, which I will maybe kick off at the start of the next stream, is I've got this working correctly for individual articles, but then if it's a series article, we need an additional piece of information, which is the series ID. So all I'm trying to do here is just see what the original object that we get from Notion is, so that I can then pull out that particular property. But we might need to leave that for the next stream because my friend Thor is going to be kicking off a super fun stream in a second, which I can find the information about from Twitter, our friend Twitter. And if we look for my friend Thor, we have this awesome thing coming up. So I recommend you jump over to that if you've got nothing to do, or if you like having us on in the background talking through some cool stuff. It starts in 1 minute and 30 seconds. And this is a special joint stream with Replit and Supabase, where we will be, or well, Thor will be building out a game, a real-time game using Replit's new game framework called Kaboom. So I think that's going to be a series of streams that's going to be running over the next like 6 weeks, right after this stream. So Fridays, well, I mean, it's Friday for me, it could be Thursday for you, but Thursdays or Fridays could potentially be your favorite Supabase day, where you get to just come hang out with us all morning while you're pretending to work in the background or something like that. So yeah, thanks heaps for dropping by. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I recommend you go check out the Replit Supabase stream starting soon. And yeah, I'll be uploading this one to YouTube as an archive stream. So hopefully there haven't been any crazy network issues, and hopefully it'll be good quality and people can keep getting value from it. But yeah, I'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out, and yeah, have a good weekend.